Hey, and welcome to today's garden class. My name is Ken Lane. We're glad that you are tuned in. Thanks for tuning in, you folks. And our VIP members, the virtual in-person people, we love you all even more. So today's garden class is on evergreens, how to care for them, and how to really prevent bark beetle. So it looks like it's going to be a bad bark beetle year. This is something that should be on your radar. And all of your evergreens are at risk. So we'll cover all of that. I've got two handouts that we'll give you. We're going to cover how to water them. So you got to care for them that way. And then how to feed them. Feed and water things. That's the most important thing, including your natives. And then I wrote an article actually on bark beetles specifically. So I'll send this to you as well. They're both in PDF formats. Actually, this one I'm not going to send to you. This is for you folks online because you're not here, which you should be. Come see us. But the bark beetle thing, you'll have a link to it here shortly. So, and then send that. I'm going to send it via email. Oops. If you give me your email address, you'll have a link via simple email. Hey, thanks for tuning in the class. Here's the handout. Something fast, just because there's a lot of you. And if you could, some of you, your handwriting's really bad. If you could like spell out exactly what it is at gmail.com or Yahoo or whatever it is, kind of take a little bit of a moment. And then if you're already part of our garden club and you're getting weekly garden articles, I write a weekly garden column. It's timely for this season. If you're getting that already, still put your email address down. Because it's not going to the masses. It's only going to you all, or you all online. So give me that, and then you'll have this handout for you real quick. Evergreens, we are surrounded by evergreens. Junipers, Pinyon Pines, Ponderosas. We have some of the largest Ponderosa groves in the world. Right, it goes right through here. With that comes some problems. There's certain bugs that like the taste of evergreens. And they live amongst us. And they migrate over into your landscape sometimes. So you really want to be aware and take care of those. Why don't we start with the bad news first and we'll get better from there. How about that? So my goal here today is introduce you to some evergreens that really perform well, how to care for those, and then introduce some new plants that you just haven't seen before. So this is our 59th spring open house. 59 years ago, last weekend, Harold Waters, my father-in-law, started the garden center, physical garden center. He had been landscaping through the 50s, and in 62, he actually had a physical place, and it was not here. This is our new location. He started this one back in 1983, so that's where physically when this location started. This property used to be an old subdivision. He just bought the subdivision, knocked down the extra stuff, and then built this. Before that, it was a train station. So the conductor, if you were living down in Phoenix, is pre-air conditioning. You summered up here and you wintered down there, and the train went right by Iron Springs Road. And so we have, in fact, I still own the old conductor's house, double-walled brick building. We actually moved it across the street, and now it's one of our rentals kind of stuff. So that's kind of the history back 100 years ago of this property. But 59 years ago, we started. First location was on Miller Valley Road. There were actually some greenhouses back there. There was some growing back in the day. And then he moved over to Plaza Drive across from the bowling alley. Right now, there's some office buildings across there. That was the garden center. So that's kind of the history. And we moved here in '83. Now I wish I had another couple acres to kind of bumping up against the maximum space we can use this property for. And the town is still growing. So boy, is it growing, my goodness. So that's kind of the history. Today you'll find 5 family members working here. So 5 lanes, my kids. So I've got 3 of my kids working, my wife and I, and 2 dogs. So there's 7 family members working here today at the garden center. So that's kind of the history, the 59 years, that kind of stuff. And every year we celebrate, and we never know if it's going to be a blizzard or glorious conditions. That's kind of the mountains for you. But also it helps us get ready for the garden center, helps us kind of paint, get the table set, get the inventory going. It gives us a crop date to kind of go make sure some of the new stuff's coming to feature for this year. And I'll show you some of those at the very, very end. So what to look for if you've got evergreens. Some of you have some glorious evergreens. You bought your property because the ponderosas are that huge pinyon pine that's out there. I mean, and you built your house around that. It's so magnificent. These are hundreds of years old. There's no replacing them. If they go south, there's no recovery. That's it. So and they die all at once, and it'll be in June. They'll flush out with new growth, and then that first 95-degree day, and literally overnight. I mean, literally like overnight, boom. Like this weekend it's green, next weekend completely dead like that. There's no warning. You've got to kind of get your gardener out and really watch that. But what to look for, if you look at the bark, and if you see little pinholes, it looks like someone literally took a needle, just put a hole in the bark. That is an exit tunnel of a bark beetle. That means you've got problems. And once you have bark beetle, the trees will actually put off a turpentine smell, that they're stressed. And so now there's other bark beetles flying around. They're going out, they're looking for this. They want easy prey, so they're coming after them. And so they'll start attacking this tree by the thousands, literally. They'll get so bad that they'll girdle the tree. They eat the bark, the wood just underneath the bark, that cambium layer, until it's girdled. And once that happens, the tree just dies. The symptoms can be the top of a tree will die out. A branch, major branches will die off. Tip flagging. It's where the tips of the new growth will just fall and die off. Those are all indications you've got some issues. Kind of watch for that, especially as we start to warm up, which hopefully I'm ready to warm up. I think we're going to be that way. So it should be drier. April and May are typically drier months. May and June are bone dry months. So you'll have to start caring a little bit more for those plants. Another indication of scale, that's another one that gets onto plants. Pinyon pines especially are vulnerable. Look at the needle. Actually, pinyon pines, here's a pinyon pine. So you'll look at the needle and actually if you look at the needle and you see little black dots, that's scale. That is going to be, you can't see the insect. The reason they call it scale is when it's in its crawler stage, you'll actually identify it as an insect, but then it attaches itself, pierces the needle, and starts sucking it dry, and then it puts an outer exoskeleton over it that looks like fish scales. They'll again attack the tree by the thousands, and they literally suck the tree till it's dead, all life out of it. And so your pinyon pines, they should be thick and robust and full like this, not thin and wispy. You should be able to see through them. They should look tropical. If they look thin and wispy, you might have a problem. Go check them and make sure look for that little dot. If you're in doubt, bring a sample in. We can identify it in a flash. We've seen so many indications of that. We can tell you, I can almost tell you before I even hand it to me, if it's got scale or not. Or we got a microscope, we can put it underneath that and actually blow it up and see it. So what to do if you have these issues. So for me, I'm not actually looking for, what is that? It almost looks like scale right there. Can't be. Nope, it's not. So it just got bruised. Anyway, you won't find bugs on plants at Potter's Garden Center. This is actually a single leaf pinyon pine. It's related to the native one. This is the one they get the butternuts, the pinyon pine nuts from. This is the tree. It looks a little bit different in that the needles are plumper, fuller, kind of longer, and it's got a little bit more blue color to it, whereas our native one has more green to yellow color. If I were going to plant a pinyon pine, I would personally plant this one, just because you get nuts faster. It's more decorative, and it's less prone to scale problems. So it's kind of a preferred variety of pinyon pine. There's 2 or 3 varieties in the world. We sell 2 of them, the native one, and we'll sell this one. But look for that. Now, what to do? First of all, you're in the season for fertilizing. Fertilize everything in the yard. Every single thing, including your natives, should be fed this time of year, and you should use this stuff. Here you go, you folks online, I'm not ignoring you, although we wish you were here. Hey, if you could, while you're tuned in, it really helps the small guys. Like, I don't have the ad budget that Depot, Lowe's, and Walmart do. I mean, their ad budget's crazy. It's been millions. But it helps us if you like and subscribe or make a comment in the backfield, because Google picks up on that and then puts you on the top of the page. So take a moment. I'll wait for you. Just do it now. So anyway, subscribe as well. That helps us. That just really helps us. If you all could, 5-star reviews on Google, that's like magic. I mean, with new people coming in, they're going to Google, going, where's my garden center? And actually look at that reviews. That helps us out a lot. Now, if you're unable, you can always have room to get better. So you never leave a 5-star review. There's always 4 is glowing for you. I mean, don't bother putting that review on. We only want 5 stars. So that just helps us trend better. So anyway, it's weird, this digital world that we live in. It's really changing how things operate. This is what you fertilize with. This is cottonseed meal and bird guano. Those are the main ingredients. It's got some sulfur. It makes things more acidic, which all evergreens like acidy type of environments. In fact, they'll shed their needles to ensure that the ground underneath them are more acidic. In fact, some things like your junipers, they'll actually taint the soil with chemicals that keep anything else from growing in that soil except them. So it's almost like a defense. I'm gonna bury everything alive underneath me so that all this space is mine. And so you'll find it's very difficult to grow underneath some of your evergreens. Ponderosas, they'll just shed so many needles, or really just pine trees. They'll shed so many needles that they don't taint the soil, they just bury things alive. So you'll see this leaf litter or needle litter as they're trying to bury things. It does 2 things for them. One, it keeps the soil from being sunburned, keeps it from being exposed, keeps the moisture in, and then it buries any seed. Seed cannot get enough sunlight or soil to actually start germinating. So these are all mechanisms that the plants have developed over the millennia that ensure that it is healthy. So if you know that's how that's what your plants need, help them with that. So don't take all of those pine needles away. Leave a layer, 2-3 inch layer, so that the soil can't get sunburned. So our Firewise, if you're in that Firewise interface, which a lot of communities are, they're saying clean up everything until it's sterile. Well, it does make it more Firewise. It also makes it less Firewise, because now that pine tree is drier. So now it's like a matchstick because it can't keep the moisture because the sun keeps sunburning. There's a balance in things. Keep the balance. Or you could just rock it right up to the trunk, then irrigate it. Just be careful with irrigating natives. You can overdo it really, really easily with those because you can give them too much water. They like big doses and then to go dry for a while. That's their favored way to be cared for. But all of them like this because it makes the soil even more acidic. It greens them up. They'll take this up through our root zone. And we really want to focus on the drip line, those outer branches. So if I am actually a tree, this is my trunk, the drip line is going to be halfway out to the branches and further out. That's where all the feeder roots are for trees and shrubs. For trees, it's really pronounced. You can really tell. So focus up here. Don't waste any energy at the trunk because there's no feeder roots right at the trunk. They're big anchoring roots at the base of a tree. Big, chunky, very barky kind of roots, and they don't have that food and water can't get through all that bark to take it up. The feeder roots, which are very fine root hairs, are out towards the outer branches, so halfway out that way. So it'll look salt and peppered when you're all done. Okay, so do that area. Go right over the rock. It'll go right through the fabric. Break it down. Don't worry about watering it in or scratching the soil. The fertilizer will break its way down eventually and get through the soil. Do it once a year for your natives, 3 times a year for your ornamentals, things that you planted. So your natives need it in spring right now is ideal. So do everything in the yard right now with that. Your ornamentals, that's your euonymus, red tipotenias, your perennial flowers, that kind of stuff. Things that you've planted out there. Those things are going to appreciate it 3 times a year. If you're thinking holidays, you think Easter, which we're coming up on it here in a couple weeks. You think 4th of July, so you fertilize then again, because usually we've got some summer rains that you can benefit from. So if you can put that food on right before the rains come, it's like magic. You get whole another, your crepe myrtles will just go crazy. Another flush of roses, your flowers, it just really helps out. Your shade trees will put another set of growth on if you can fertilize right then. And the most important feeding of the year is Halloween. And you see the fall color? That's your cue. Go ahead and fertilize then. The plants will actually use that food and store that up in their root structure to get through a harsh winter. So that's how you fertilize things. Natives, we're just about to activate our water. So I haven't turned my system on yet, but the soil's still pretty moist from that last weekend. But in a couple weeks, if we don't get more moisture, the soil is going to dry out. So it'll be time to activate. And when plants flush their new growth, they're more sensitive. They need more moisture. So until they leaf, they really aren't using a lot of water. But the second they flower, bloom, put a leaf on, candle growth starts to elongate on your evergreens, that they are actively using moisture. That's when you want to really be careful. So they're more sensitive when they have new growth coming out. So for my natives, I would recommend watering them once a month, really in April, May, and June. Those are really dry, just dry, bone dry months. And it will get them through better. So get a sip of water here. How many people have had their second vaccine shots? Over half the group. Oh, good. Kind of the whole staff here has had it. I've got 3 more staff members that are going through the process now. So it does help you come to work and feel more confident. Just because you're going to the lunchroom, you can have a birthday cake and not have to worry about simple things that you kind of take for granted when you're working with colleagues. Kind of helps with that. So we're kind of encouraging. Actually, my second shot I had like 3 weeks ago, and I had this chest cold thing that kind of happened. So like a week and a half later, came down with a cold. And where did that come? Had my flu shot, my vaccine shots. That is impossible. Well, I don't know if it's a reaction to the shot or what, but kind of struggling with it, kind of keeping it going. So it's getting better now. So, whew. Okay, so where was I at? Fertilizing water. Water. Pull out that business card that I passed around. On the back is the actual water guide. We made this to tape inside your irrigation box or your garden journal so that you remember, the growing season, summer, there's 2 seasons, summer and winter. Summer is April through October. That is our growing season. You should have your irrigation on then, turn it off then. It's pretty close, okay? In winter, you'll notice you're still watering, even mid-winter. So you turn it off in November. Well, we didn't have any moisture. November, December, at the end of January, we had that big snow. It was bone dry. Really, we didn't have snow since last winter. It went like 9 months with no moisture. So we didn't have our monsoon pattern like we normally do last summer. So plants are stressed. I think that's what's going to cause. I think that's why this bark beetle infestation, seeing you walk the forest, they look unhealthy. So that's going to come out and spread over all of our landscapes. So just be aware. Hopefully it's not that bad. Hopefully we got enough moisture this last couple storms that they recovered. But when you're really dry, it takes more than one event up to the trough to really rehydrate. It takes several times. So I'm kind of monitoring that closely. We're already hearing that the scale is out and in force. We're having samples come in right now from Pinyon Pine scale. And you'll see this white egg mass, kind of cottony gathering mass, be about this size of a softball or so, gathers at the base of the tree where the main crotches, main trunks. You'll see this white mass there, have some black dots in it, those are the eggs. That's what's going to affect, they'll hatch and then affect this spring's growth. If you see that, gather that up and then give it to someone that you don't like. So a family member, that uncle that just you don't like to see at the party, or just throw it in your junk dumpster. Just throw it away, get it off your property. There's no way you can gather it all up, but you can get rid of some of it. So as best you can. So again, you should be walking your property and take a look. So the egg, the scale hatch is starting. This is the leading edge. Just started this week. We started to see samples, and it will ramp up over the next month to be just more as we get warmer. So, but take care of them. Water your natives once a month. I would take a soaker hose. I wouldn't put them on your irrigation system. I would just take a soaker hose, or take your regular hose, just open it up slowly as a trickle, let it run for half a day, just underneath that drip line someplace. If you can snake a soaker hose through there and run it for an hour or two, that's even better. So take care of them. Usually April, May, and June, they're dry. By July, we're starting to see moisture and the pressure's off. So let the nature take care of it at that point. But this season right that we're coming into is kind of hot and dry. For your ornamentals, things in the yard, things on the irrigation, this is how you water. The mistake I find newbies make, they're watering like every day or every other day. They're watering too much, and they're not watering long enough. It's watering 15 minutes at a time with a drip system. This is micro irrigation. It's got a 1 gallon per hour emitter head, probably. It's got to run for an hour to get 1 gallon of water out of that emitter. So if you run it for 15 minutes, what do you got? You spit on the soil is all you did. So you really want to run these systems long, push that water down through the entire root zone, and then let it dry out. Because if you can push water down 18, 24 inches in the soil, you have a deep-rooted plant, that much soil takes a long time to dry out. So let it breathe in between. So if you're watering every day like that, you're going to kill your plants from overwatering. And that's what this is trying to help you with. How often do you water your trees? It's saying once a week, deep soak it for established plants. If you have a lot of new stuff, twice a week, because their roots are just, they aren't out there yet. So they're more dependent on you until they get those roots out. Then you can back it off the next week. Plus, if you could do me a favor, I'm trying to get my logo in every irrigation box and by county as I can. So just tape that right inside, because you'll forget, when do I turn this thing off? This fall, you'll be going, when do I do this? That'll help you. And then online, you folks, you'll see a link in there. It's not as clean and neat. You don't get to see my pretty face on my business card. You don't want to see that anyway. That's where the info is. You'll have a link to this, kind of a third of a page kind of handout to you. Okay. I'll give you one other little secret. Spruce, Colorado spruce, Fat Albert spruce, Baccaris, hoop's eyes, all these different, the Christmas tree looking things. Even this kind of tree. Here's a, I don't know if I can't lift this thing up. Can you see it on camera okay? So it's too heavy to lift up on this box, but this is Norway spruce. Colorado spruce grows wild on the ridge lines. You're seeing that just out in the forest. There's two types of big evergreen you're seeing up like on Spruce Mountain. That's Colorado spruce. And a conicolor firs. Firs and spruce both grow wild. So they naturalize really, really well here. Colorado spruce gets kind of big. So sometimes we'll do this. This is Fat Albert spruce. It's a dwarfed version of Colorado spruce. Colorados get up to 50, 60, 80 feet tall. They live forever. They're monsters. They'll take over an entire section of your yard with age. They're just big. They're too big for a lot of yards. And so they dwarfed it. Now you've got something that looks like a Colorado spruce called Fat Albert spruce. Has that same blue color that seems layering to it. It's got a central leader. And it only gets 18, 20 feet tall. That's about right for a yard. So once it gets above 20 feet, it's just so much, it's so tall, you can't, it's up there. Ponderosa Pines, we'll sell some Ponderosa Pines. Really what you're planting, It's a trunk. When it gets all done, you're going to have a trunk sitting here, and the foliage is going to be up there in 10 years. So it's almost better to go with Austrian pines because they keep their foliage right down to the ground. They don't get as big. They look better out in the yard. They keep their shape and their design better. So there's places for both, but they're both long-needled pines. This happens to be Norway spruce. If you want something green, you go with this guy. So Norway is just like this. They're cousins. You can just see the foliage is very rich green instead of more blue. You can get too much blue, Arizona blue, that kind of dusty blue to it. Sometimes green adds a pop of a color that's out there. Here's how I go on with that. I'll get a sip of water while I'm doing that. They grow really, really well. Water it once a week. That's plenty for this guy. Be careful. I did notice the first house I ever bought here was in Prescott Valley. It's back when they had dirt roads. You're all on your own septic fields. You had no services. They ran one electrical line to you, and it was really rough. It's called Jackass Flats back in the early 90s. And so I killed a lot of plants out there trying to figure out how to garden in that clay, heavy, heavy clay. Caliche layers. You have this layer of kind of, it's almost like concrete. It's calcium layer. And so there, I made sure that I planted all of my evergreens just above the ground. I would leave, let's say this spruce. Let me get this thing out of the way. Yeah. That's kind of, we tell the staff members, you don't need your gym membership anymore once you start working here, because you're schlepping plants all over the place all the time. You're always lifting stuff up. Let's say this is a spruce. This is actually a red tip photinia. I would leave about 2, 3, 4 inches of the root ball out of the ground if you've got heavy clay soil. And then I would mound. I would have a real slight mound to bury that. And then I put my irrigation on top of that, or my water trough, or whatever, however you're watering things outside of that. And so what that did, in the month of March, I killed a lot of evergreens, and the monsoon rains, August, September, they seemed to get, the ground got so wet they couldn't breathe. Had my irrigation, then the afternoon rain would come, the ground would not dry out, and the plant would suffer. I'd get root rot. Evergreens are really sensitive to over watering. That's, if you're gonna kill an evergreen, it'll be from the ground staying too wet, or your perk, how fast the soil drains. Won't be quite enough, and so you fill up all those water molecules, you know, in the air pockets, and they just drowned. And so by leaving a little bit out of the ground, like leaving their nose out of a, say if you're in a pool or in a lake, if you just keep your nose up above ground, you're okay. The second you get underground, under the water too long, it's not good. Plants are just the same way. That kind of ensured that I had some aeration, so they could breathe, even in the heaviest of soil. That technique really changed. It was a game changer when I learned that. I just killed several things before I got to that point. That's advice for you as well. Okay. What I would do after you get done fertilizing, that's right, I was gonna teach you how to, the insider tip, fertilizing. So things that are blue. This blue that you see on this is actually a green tree, but it puts a secretion around that green needle and makes it look blue. So what will happen is, as that plant grows, it'll lose its color. You bought it because it had that silver blue to it, really deep, rich 3D blue. Now it's green, or it has less of that. Here's the reason why. If you give it aluminum sulfate, aluminum is what it picks up and creates that blue color. So if you want to bring out this rich color on your evergreens specifically, give it, in addition to the food, give it some of this. It'll bring out all that rich color. So that's kind of an insider. We're going deep into fertilizing, but that'll really make a difference. Just once a year. So you'll fertilize more often, but this, I find, once a year should do it. Aluminum sulfate, that's why they make it, kind of a funky mineral, but it really brings out that color. You can also can also use this with hollies, hydrangeas, azaleas, rhododendrons. That's what in the East Coast, that's what they really is for. But here with the evergreens, really makes a difference on those spruce. Bring anything that's got a blue hue, and you can just see which one. This has got blue hue. You can just tell who they are. They would really benefit from this. Okay. All right, that's what I wanted to share with you. We've covered how to water, how to fertilize. Let's cover insects, shall we? So how do you care for and treat? There's a couple techniques. So the Forest Service is preaching spray a tree and then catch it at its crawler stage, which the scale, really for the scale, and bark beetle, they're saying the same thing. They say spray it with permethrin, which I don't know if I have that up here. I don't have it because I don't recommend that. I find it's not as effective because you got to get the timing right, just spot on. It's just hard to do. When do you know when they're going to hatch? When do you know they're exiting? The bark beetles are exiting. So I find that it's better to give it plant protector. And I've already given all my evergreens this. Gave it to them before that last storm. I timed it perfectly. It's great. If you missed it, it's fine. This is a systemic. That is, the plant will actually absorb it and take it up underneath the bark through the cambium layer and then up through the structure of the plant. You mix it up in a water can, or 5-gallon bucket or something, and then you just pour it right at the crown, right where the trunk meets the soil. That's where you put it. It's going to absorb this through the bark, through that crown area, and absorb it, take it up through the tree. Critical if you've got bark beetle, because that's where they're active. If you've got scale, they're piercing that needle and sucking the juice out. But now we're tainting. It's like a vaccine for evergreens. One application does an entire year. So you're going to do it now. It'll be good for the entire year. And I would encourage you to do all of your evergreens, the ones that are valuable to you. Do it like this weekend or in the next month. Do it, and you'll protect those plants or mitigate a lot of the damage that's happening to those evergreens. Okay, plant protector. There's a lot of applications for this. For fruit trees, aphids on things. Really, for this class, focus in on your evergreens. I think you'll benefit greatly from it. Super easy to use. Really what you do is you just take a measuring tape, just wherever it's comfortable to measure around the bark, however many inches that is, that's how many ounces of this that you put in the can. 2-gallon water can, whatever you got. Top it off with water and just pour it around the base. It's that easy. Anyone can do it. You don't need to be an arborist. That'll take the edge off. So the last time we saw a bark beetle outbreak like this, flathead borers, tip borers, we had a lot of issues because the forest was so dry. We saw entire tracts of forest die off. Entire neighborhoods, the scale were so bad they killed off every pinyon pine. Every ponderosa was dead by the time it got done. So it's a serious thing. The ones that lived were the ones that were cared for. You could tell them they were the last standing ponderosa was sitting there. Last pinyon pine in the whole street, last one. They were next to lawns, flower beds, or picking up moisture and food from around the yard, and then they'd been cared for. So those are the ones that survived. The ones that were let go, those are the ones that were susceptible. So just be aware. So, yep. Okay. So she said, are there any good beetles? No. No, there are no good beetles. Correct. No, there's no good beetles. So that's right. So if you have a ponderosa that went down because of bark beetle, they're still there. They're still underneath that bark. There's still a party going on. And there's even more beetles coming in. They're bringing chips and salsa, and it's like a backyard barbecue in your tree. And so they'll stay there until the plant loses all vitality, and then they'll all migrate out and go infect the next tree. Again, stressed trees, they send off this smell that they've got sensors for. You can't smell it, but they can. They're just going to fly around the forest looking for another easy victim, and then they all converge on that. So You know, they say to haul that wood off, that kind of stuff, if it gets infected. I take the middle ground. I think if you're burning, that's how you fuel. That's not the fuel you're using to heat your home. I think you could cord it and spit it and they'd be fine. Chip it. They aren't going to stay there very long. They're going to fly off and go away to the next suffering tree. They don't like dead wood. They're like dying wood. Is what they're going to go after. So I kind of take that middle ground. But some people go extreme on you. They just go, get it off of there, and make sure all your neighbors do the same. And they're pointing fingers, going, you should do this, or I'm offended. I just say, it's dead. It's dead. There's no going back. Use some common sense. A dead tree is extremely expensive to remove, especially a big one. It'll cost you $1,000 bill, just like that. Not even trying. Just because a big tree, you need someone that's insured that knows what they're doing. They can't just be some guy driving by with a chainsaw that takes it down, or they're going to crush your neighbor's house or something, drop it on their car. You want to make sure the right person does that for you. Okay, so let's go over some evergreens. This is one I use to screen my front yard. This is Spartan juniper. Junipers do great here. They're just so robust. They naturalize. You get them rooted and they just take care of themselves. They're methodical. They just slowly grow consistently over time. I wanted to screen. When the kids left for college, I converted the whole lawn area where we used to play soccer and ball and wrestle and all that stuff. Well, I didn't want to mow after that. After the built-in labor pool was gone off to college, I converted everything to patio, courtyards. So it's more expensive to install that. Boy, when you do, it just feels good. Fountains are going, surrounded by containers and yards. But it's also right there on the street where neighbors are going by, like every 5 minutes. Going, hey, kid, how you doing? And I just want to sip my coffee and read my paper. And so I wanted to screen that some. And so I took some of these and zigzagged them in the front, just by the street, kind of a couple clicks back. Put some very pretty flowers in front. Russian sage, salvias, just so it gives you something to look at. But then I wanted a screened living wall for me on the backside. So I zigzag these through. They get up about, 10 feet tall, probably about this wide, 6-8 feet wide. And so now they've screened where I can kind of see someone back there, but I really don't. You can sip your coffee. Just a good screening plant between neighbor. Hot tub you just bought. You want to screen some of that off because your neighbor's always flipping the bathroom light on. The second you get in the tub, it just feels like I'm being encroached on. Put some of these in. It's a great one for that. They make it in blue, called Wichita Blue Juniper. I want a green. I've got so much. I'm up in, Eagle Ridge, where I've got manzanitas, Pinyon Pines. I've got a lot of Arizona blue already, so I wanted something green, something to counteract that. So I chose this. There's lots of choices. This one can get some, I notice it gets spider mite. In the summer, I kind of look for it. It'll get this webbing. Looks like spiders in it. It's a little tiny mite that starts to suck on scrapes off has a scarifying mouth part that kind of scrapes off the foliage. And they eat it alive, basically. Kind of watch for that. They kind of like junipers. Some years are bad, some years are not. You just don't know, but just kind of eyeball it. If you see it, super easy to control. Just keep an eye on it. So if you see that with your plants. So also like this guy here, this is kind of the teddy bear of all evergreens. This is Alberta Spruce. This is a spruce. They're both related, cousins, same DNA. This is just a dwarf guy, just like the teddy bear. You just want to hug him, although he is kind of pokey. Don't stroke him this way, only go this way. This one, true dwarf, only gets about head high over decades. I mean, this is last year's growth right there. So just slow, or this is one you probably want to spend a few extra bucks on because you want to get the big one. You don't want to buy the small one and have this thing grow up eventually because it'll be years. Just pay the money, get the bigger one, because this thing is probably 8-9 years old just as it is right now. Take that long, go from small to big. I do find that spider mites can get on this sometimes. You'll see that webbing. Just look for it. It's not a big deal. If you see it, there's a spray that takes them right out. Where we use this in containers, raised beds, entrance where those columns are. You want something that's just decorative to kind of show off, to accents around the mailbox, that kind of stuff. That's where you use this because it's so slow growing. Cute as can be when you put little lights on it for the holidays. It's just cute little bows. Easy to decorate with. Albert Spruce. This is the #1 seller right here. This is a native, grows wild. Baghdad. My daughter and I had a birthday a couple of weeks ago. My daughter and I took the side-by-side out and just ran across the countryside, ran across a magnificent forest of these down towards Kirkland, just the backside. Between Crown King and Kirkland, there's some just wild country. These grow wild. They're magnificent. This is Arizona cypress. If you want a fast growing evergreen, or ever blue, whatever color this is, it's more blue colored. This is the one that we use. If we're trying to screen wind, we need wind, like the valley areas, the Chino Valleys, Pauldens. Wind is terrible out there. We'll put some of these from the southwest side. That's where the wind usually comes from. Just trying to block that off. Keep that wind up there at the roof level to get it off the garden level areas. This is 25, it looks innocent. This grows fast to 25 feet, really fast. 12 feet wide. Just as solid, just solid. You want a privacy screen? You've got a big property, this is a great one to go with. So we carry bigger ones than this. This is one you could probably cheat and go smaller. You plant the smaller one if you need a lot of them because they grow so fast. This will grow 18 inches a year. This will double in size this year. So grows fast. In fact, many of the junipers you see out in the wild, they're actually Arizona cypress, not junipers. The difference is these are put on a little tiny cone about that big, and the junipers obviously put on a little berry about that big. So some of them put, if it has a pine cone, it's an Arizona cypress. If it has a berry, it's a juniper, of course. So many times it fools me. Oh, what else we got up here? That was the evergreen trees. And I brought a couple other things that are evergreen. Just because it's 59th years in business, this is our cue. We try to introduce new things. The way the industry works, they'll find new life. Like this, what do I have up here? Let's show you this. This is brand new. You've never seen this before. No one's ever seen this. And this is how they always come. This is on the front of magazine covers. You know what this is? Lavender. That's right. Yeah, exactly. This is Spanish lavender. And it's because it's got this big, bold flower. This is the one that's so pretty. Bees love it. It's a pollinator. Evergreen. This is the one that if you kill it, it'll be from overwatering. This likes to be dry on the drier side. So water it real deep, then let it dry out. But this one, you've never seen a white. It's always comes in blue or purples. This is a white variety. So we grew this one just for, well, to make sure we had it for this event. So, and we'll be the only one in town that has it. You're only going to find white. You either like it or not. But it's just funky. If you're a gardener, you've grown that much lavender before, you kind of, done that. What's different? Show me something different. White has a blue hue to it, but the white tuft at the end is super, super unusual. So same hardiness, same plant. You could use it. Same smell, has that lavender, delicious smell, just white color. This is another evergreen that goes with these. This is called gopher spurge or gopher plant. It's a common name, gopher plant. Where's my water? It's about to go into flower. So it has a real pretty yellow flower. It's about that tall, kind of mounds like this. That has this yellow flower to it in spring. It's a perennial, comes back every year. But it's just so robust, so hardy, so tough. And it looks Arizona. It looks like it's prehistoric or something. So it says, I'm from the Southwest, and it is. The myth, gopher plant is said, check Google. This is where Google is not your friend, especially in gardening world. They either overwhelm you with stuff or they give you the wrong info. Plant one of these in your yard and gophers will run away. That is not true. That does not happen. So I've tried it. I've seen gophers pop up just around the edges. They don't eat the plant. but it doesn't shoo them off, or you'd have to have so many of them, it'd be ridiculous. But it's just pretty. Planted because you like it. It's pretty. It's drought hardy, like succulents. This is kind of from the succulent family. It's actually a euphorbia for you gardeners. It's actually more related to poinsettias than it is to succulents. If you break off the stem, you get that same white kind of sap, which is why the animals don't bother this. Javelina, deer, rabbits, they don't bother this because it's got that, it's defending itself with that tainted sap that they don't like the taste of. Gopher plant. What else? Here's a couple other evergreens. This is one I grow underneath my juniper. Got a huge juniper. Huge, I mean ancient. It's like you can't put your hands around it. It's huge. Double trunked. It's magnificent. It's a piece of art. I limbed it up because you had foliage coming right down to the ground. I limbed it up because I wanted to have a garden underneath. And then I put art, bronzes underneath that, and some garden stuff. And I killed a lot of plants. The juniper would just kill them off. It tainted the soil. This guy is happy as can be underneath there. This is Akebia, or no, Akuba, like Aruba, only Akuba. Evergreen, this is this winter color. Got several of these. It does not like the sun. It likes the shade. So, which is perfect on the north side of my house, underneath the juniper. This is the plant, but it looks tropical. It looks like it should be a house plant, doesn't it? It does put a flower. You see, this is last year's flower right here. Insignificant flower. You're really planting it for the foliage, and it's evergreen. Really, really tough. It's got a waxy leaf, I think is why it's so robust. So it doesn't dry out very easily. I don't water, I treat it like a native in my backyard. I water it maybe once a week, every 10 days. And it just is happy, but it's in the shade, so it doesn't dry out because it's in that shaded part of the gardens. Akuba, like Aruba. What's that? It'll gone down to 0 in my yard. I've had a couple sub-zero winters. Came through like a champ. So it's a zone 6. That's what that is. This is Lenten rose. Again, a perennial. Early spring, really late winter bloomer. So it's in bloom right now. It's one of the first things to bloom in winter. Just a funky plant you never really have seen before, and you've never seen black. Usually it comes in a pink color or a apple blossom kind of color. You never see black. So, and you're only going to find it at Waters Garden Center. Yeah, we're not ignoring you online. We know you're there. If you have a question, please just type it in, I guess. So anyway, Lenten rose. We've got 2 or 3 colors down there in the perennial section. This will come back year after year. It is, again, a shade lover more than a sun lover. But it kind of announces spring. It takes off. This is as big as it gets. It's about like this, kind of mounding like it. A perennial flower. It goes with this. They're companion plants. This is a native. There's a yellow variety of columbine, what this is, that grows wild. So animals, they know, don't eat on this. It doesn't taste good. It's out there in the wild. We know what it is. Don't bother it. Now we're trying to introduce some different colors. So you'll probably see 6, 7 colors down there in columbine, and we'll try to keep these in stock. More shade. I find it says it'll grow in sun, and it does. This doesn't bloom very long. So it blooms and fades real quick. More in the shade, east, north side of the house, gardens, it blooms much longer, I find. Just personal. My name's Ken. We're just friends talking over the back fence. This has worked for me. I find it just works a little better in more shaded areas. Some sun, but not. Anyway, but these 2 guys are definitely companion plants to each other. Same garden space, same water, same everything. And they go with this. Don't those look good together? You see that online? There you go, columbine. This is coral bells. That's what your grandparents called it, but heuchera is how they're picking up the Latin name on this plant in the botanical journals and stuff. Heuchera, great perennial for here. And mostly evergreen. Mine were looking really good until that heavy snow we had. Then it was buried so long it just looked rough. So I kind of cut it back, fed it. Now it's starting to emerge again, fresh. You're planting this for the foliage. Comes in black, green, gold, lime green. Comes in a lot of different foliage colors. The flower is all the same. Kind of has this long, kind of coral bell kind of flower to it. Kind of small, has lots of them. But really, you're planting it for this. Just looks really good. Looks good in containers. Just out there. I plant this often at the base of my trees because I don't like the look of just rock going right to the trunk. It looks sterile. So I'll plant a couple of these and put it right where the emitter is for the tree. And I find it takes the same, it's so robust. It'll take the same water pattern as my trees. And so now it looks like life is erupting from this. It's an underplanting of this tree. It's just really good look. This will turn into this great big, this will be 10 times its size, about this tall, when it's all done. But you play with the colors, coral bells. That's a perennial. Yeah, that's a perennial. Here's a new perennial. These guys go together here. Gopher plant. This is autumn joy sedum. We grew this one for this weekend. This is, you never see it variegated like this. It's always a blue color. The standard, the one that's been around forever, is autumn joy sedum. It grows about this tall. It's kind of mounding, and it has this very bright pink flower in the autumn. Thus the name autumn joy sedum. It's a rock star in the fall of the year. You just don't see this gold color. Very, very unusual to see a sedum with any kind of variegation, but this, here we go. You'll only find it one place in town, probably in the state, Waters Garden Center. So just for this weekend. These two guys, the same sun, same water, same everything together. They go together. An annual, let me make sure I got all this. Here's an evergreen. So Spanish broom, there's a shrub that gets up above head high. It's quite large. Has a bright yellow flower, be about 2-3 weeks. It'll be in bloom. Very fragrant. It can be kind of weedy though. It's fast growing. Short-lived. It lives for maybe 7, 8, 10 years, and then it just gets woody and looks mangy. Deserves a chainsaw at that point. So replace it. This one is related to Spanish broom. This is called Scotch broom. And it has, instead of yellow, it's got a red and pink flower to it. Very pretty. And it stays lower, fuller. It's longer lived. Doesn't outgrow itself as quickly. Quite honestly, most Spanish brooms get too big for where they're planted. They just get too mangy looking. They start to fall over in the snow. This guy is much more handsome. Of course, nice, shapely, mounding kind of size. And the same fragrance, a little bead, same little fragrance. And it just has a pretty, it's called Minstead Scotch broom. There's 2 or 3 colors out there. But again, it's evergreen, and it gets most of its photosynthesis from the stems. It doesn't really have leaves per se. It's doing photosynthesis through its branching, so almost like a pencil plant or something you'd have inside the house, or for you southeast folks, you'll grow wild pencil plants. It's they're not related, but it sort of has that same structure to it. But when it's in bloom, all these little nodules on this are flower buds, not leaf buds. So it'll just be covered. You won't see any green on it. It'll just be total flowers. It's very pretty. Very, very drought hardy plant. Okay, how are we doing on time? Got a little bit of time left. That's good. With this guy, these kind of go together. These shade plants, part of that shade garden area. This is a shrub, though. This is lily of the valley, or pieris. Lily of the valley. It's a big family of plants. There's probably 50 varieties. We bring in the cold, hardier varieties, but they don't like the sun. They like more of the shade area. They'll take some sun, but no more than that early morning. Wants to be out of the sun by 10, 11 o'clock in the morning or so. Give it some shade. So underplanting under trees, north side of the house. Looks great in containers. Looks great next to the patio, that covered patio that you have. That's where you'd put this. The flowers are magnificent. So smell it before you leave. It really smells, has a sweet smell to it. And then it's evergreen. This is its color in the winter. This is winter color. It's been budded like this since last fall. You've seen with the flower, these big flower clusters, and then it finally teases us and opens up with these bell-shaped flowers, kind of like a manzanita flower. Is that kind of flower to it. So the new growth will be red, which is quite striking. Very pretty, like a red tip photinia owning the shade. It's got a very bright plant for the shade areas. It's an evergreen perennial, really. It's how it's defined. Watering be once a week or so. That's how you'd water that. Treat it just like that water guide on that card. Treat it just like that. Be fine. A couple times a week when it's young. Once a week when it's older. This is one. This is Indian hawthorn, or Raphaeoliptus is the Latin name, but Indian hawthorn. It's an evergreen, so this is how it looks in the winter. It has kind of a bronzy tinge to it. That bronze or copper color will kind of fade and just be bright green as the summer, as the growing season continues. But these are all flower buds. Bright, bright pink flower that's super fragrant. It's a great plant for here. Loves bright sun. I mean, more sun, the better this plant is going to do. Bright, and then take a blow dryer to it. It likes hot. Say bright sun. So against a reflective wall on a stem wall or something, to get that reflective heat, which kills a lot of things. This will like that. Evergreen, the flowers are kind of a bonus. It just looks good without anything, but when it's in flower and that smell happens, it's really great. It grows about, just think mounding, knee high to hip high. There's several varieties that we sell here. This one is called Ballerina, I believe. Yeah, Ballerina. Gets up about 3 feet by 3 feet by 3 feet, kind of evergreen mounding plant. It's got a lot of applications for here. Indian hawthorn's a great plant. Every yard should have one. I grow those in great big pots on either side of my garage. Just because I wanted something evergreen. Garages are just sterile. I mean, yeah, I know you cockwork the RV in it, but it just needs something, some life. And so it helps me soften up that big door, gives it welcomes me home every time. So anyway, okay, some new things. This is new. This is not evergreen. It was just so pretty, I had to show it off. This is lupin. Lupin's a wild flower. In fact, you'll plant, we put this plant in our wildflower mix that we blend our own wildflower seed. This is the plant. This is about 3 years old. So perennials typically have to be at least 2 years old before they start blooming like this. The first year they'll put a little bit of flower on. Next year, that's when you take the picture because they're just rock stars and they bloom thereafter. That's why perennials are a little bit more expensive than annuals because they're older. They've been at the farm twice as long. So that you have to nurture these things so long to get it to look like this. Lupin is, again, more of a shade plant. It'll take some sun, but it blooms far better in more shaded areas. It just does this every single spring. Red tip photinia I'll skip because we're running out of time and everyone knows what it is. Here, we'll do this. That's a new pansy we grew. You just don't see pansies there you go. You'll only find this at Waters Garden Center. So it's got a ruffled, usually pansies have that flat surface with that monkey face to it. This is called Fizzle Sizzle pansy. I get bored. I look at catalogs and go, ooh, that's neat. I want to grow that. Let's do that. And so we bring these in. It's kind of the first crop of the season. We've got 2 more crop rotations coming through spring of pansies. But just unusual, fun. You want to impress your friends? Take those and serve them on top of a salad or something because they're edible. Isn't that pretty? Just real slight smell to it. But anyway, pansies can go right outside now. You're in the planting season. You can plant all this stuff right now. Be fine. If we do get another freak storm, we will. In April, there's always one last snow or something will happen. Just always. And then it will just be glorious after that. So just put a box over it or put a sheet or something over things. So these things like being planted when it's cool out. There's less transplant shock when you do that. Okay, we're at the end of my presentation. Again, make sure you put your email address down. I'll send you this Bark Beetle handout. It'll cover all the stuff that we just did in person. So if you missed some notes, here's the actual, this is what I took it off of. This works. I've got time for questions. You got them. Go for it. Oh, Anyone have the clipboard? Maybe we can pass it over here if you'd like. Oh, Kinsey, that's great. Oh yeah, that's great. Yeah, thank you. This is my daughter, Mackenzie. So there you go. So I won't do it here or I'll get overwhelmed. Can I have them come down to the front, so where Michelle was at that table, or what do I do? You want to do it right here? Oh, look at that. That's great. Hey, so we're going to give away these plants at the end of the day. Are we doing it right now, or? Oh, well, let's do it later. That way you aren't overwhelmed with 50 people wanting to. That way you folks, if you wanted to come in, get off behind that. You want some fresh air. Come on in. They can input stuff, and at the end of the day, we'll draw these out and call people. Would that work? Okay. We grew like pansy baskets. We're going to do a raffle because it's spring open house. Make sure you put your name into the drawing, and then we'll draw at the end of the day and let everyone know. We're giving away all these plants so that you're seeing up here. So you've got red tip or a lilac, forsythia, looks like a holly, a golden. Isn't that cool? This is a arbovita, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, threadleaf arbovita. So giving away some funky, fun, unusual, only Waters Garden Center kind of plants at the end of the day, just to kind of say thank you and to make the weekend something to do, to make it special, that it's not just the same old, you want to buy my plants kind of weekend. So make sure, I think there's a table at the entrance. I think Michelle, or my perennial manager, is down there. Just put your name in there and we'll draw it out at the end of the day. The likelihood of winning is extreme. So it's not like the lottery or something. It's just there's not that many people are going to be in there. We got a lot of plants to give away. Participate if you want to. Other questions? Anything else? We all covered? Boy, I did good. So no questions. Everyone's got it going on. That's great. So yeah, online. Okay. How many people are online right now? 36, gotcha. Okay, good. Yeah, in the back. I got one in the back. Go for it. Yeah. No, not all of them are deer resistant. Most of them are. That's one. We can show. We've got a list of deer resistant list. We can guide you, and most of the deer read the list. Not all of them, but most of them do. But at least we can get you where you're making less mistakes. Generally, they're not going to like evergreens. They don't like that kind of. They don't like the tannins or the sap that they are filled with. So you're probably good with that. But that's where you come and you ask an expert. We can guide you in and show you. Also, the tags. We're trying to put that on the tags quite a bit. We try to mention that on our website. So all of our plants you see, they're listed on our website. So if you want to see the latest load that came in, you can check our website, watersgardencenter.com. There's a big shop button. You can see what's there, and we try to list that because that's such a problem. Deer and rabbits, and javelina. We'll try to mention that too. Plus, on our signage here, which is basically what's represented on the website, we're putting how they grow here. Sometimes you're reading the national tags, like this tag. This is how it grows in the country. It's not how it grows here. Here, things seem to grow about 20-30% smaller than other parts of the country because of the dryness and the altitude. It just cools down so much at night and warms up at day. Things grow slower and they grow smaller than they will, let's say, in Oregon or Midwest or someplace. So that'll be a helpful tip for you as well. But we'll be glad to hype on you. You're not the only one. That herd is roaming the neighborhood, so ravaging plants. So what else? Was there something online? Yeah. Yeah, so Debbie, yes, thank you for the question. We do have smoke tree. There it is here. Again, I don't know what size or what variety. I've got thousands of plants. But you can check the website, and it has it all listed there. So go on there, and it'll actually show you the price. It shows you how it grows, what color it is. So yes, we've got smoke tree. But it's not an evergreen, so I didn't bring it for this class because it doesn't fit the class parameters. What else? Is there something else online, Ken? Okay. Is it too early to prune sedum? Is that the question? No, go for it. You can prune sedum anytime. That's like a weed. Just grows and grows and grows. Go for it. Yeah. Question over there? Right. Common flowering evergreen for Groom Creek, in between all those trees. Right. I think you could probably grow this one if you looked where if you got 6 hours of sun, between the morning through the evening, 6 hours, just watch where you'll have some areas that are brighter than others, but you're really dealing with more shade. So there you're doing with the Acubas, like this guy, the Pieris, which animals don't eat. Deer don't eat Pieris, that lily of the valley. They don't eat this, so they have flowers. So talk to me on the sidebar. There's a question here. Yeah, so she's got a Ponderosa, and it died. Did I hear that right? She doesn't know if it died from drought or from bark beetle. It died from both. The bark beetle came because of drought. And so if you look at the bark, I'd almost go to Vegas on it. You'll see little pinholes in the bark. So it's just damage, probably from last summer, that came through, and you're just seeing it. They're probably still there. So I'd really, for you, it's critical that you take care of your other ponderosas, or it will spread. Just fertilize, plant protector, water once a month, all the stuff we just said. Do that, protect your other ponderosas, because they are infected as well. So that neighborhood will be infected. Yeah, I would say because it's dangerous. So how fast do I take it down? I would do it this year. What will happen is after the monsoon, it'll start dropping limbs. And now it's dangerous for you, because if a limb drops on your head, that's like, it'll knock you out. So I've almost had a limb hit me before. So you kind of want to get it before it starts dying and dropping limbs. So it would be something, call Johnny's Tree and Landscape. He's insured for those ponderosas. He does a good job. He's done several jobs for me, and he's very efficient. And he can drop that thing right down. You have to worry about it dropping on your house, kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah. It comes in a bigger bag, and you get multiple prices. So buy 6 bags or more, it's like 20. You save $5 a bag or something like that. Yeah. Yes. I would. So if you've got, so she lives in the forest. So there we go. You're surrounded, which is why you bought that, because you want to be protected. You like the sound of that wind going through the trees. It's magical. You're at risk, so be careful. Treat them. Some of them are really valuable. To really treat those, might not be possible to treat the whole forest. Some, if you lose a couple of them, the property value just declines because you've lost those. Take care of those. Oh, good. Yeah. Do the food now. I would do all 50 trees with the food. I take a hand spreader, just sprinkle around. Just get as close as you can. You're just trying to take the edge off. And then watch your watering. So you might want to water. That's where you'd invest in a couple soaker hoses and just kind of water them once a month. Don't overdo it. It's too early yet. It's still moist. But in a month, it's going to dry out, and it would be important to do it then. So there, I've actually taken my soaker hose. I just leave it out there. I'll let those needles kind of crawl over it or whatever, and I just leave it for convenience for me. Just kind of snake it through and go, it's close. And I'll turn it on once a month and connect the hose up and run it for a bit. Yeah. So, well, which ones? This one or the shade ones will thrive? Will just love that. They will be in heaven. If you plant a more sunny thing in a shaded area, so he's got a shaded garden, which ones will grow well? So what will happen is with these guys, they'll quickly shoot up and reach for the sun. So they'll just elongate really fast to get to the sun. So I would think any of these, but yeah, the Pieris, the Columbines, the Cubas, even the violas and pansies would do fine out there. Yeah. So I'll take one more question, put my mask on, and then I'll just hang out as long as you want and answer questions. I'll just be here and be there for you. Look for an email for you later today or tomorrow. with that bark beetle handout. So we'll wrap this up. So the bottoms are starting to be, those seats are getting kind of hard, I realize right now. So one last question over here. Okay. So why did your red tip photinia die? Or not growing? Oh, got it. The dogs are peeing on the red tip photinias too much. Got it. So too much urine is going to be too much salt. I mean, it just kind of can kill things, ammonium and salt. What to do, you can flush it out with water. What I would do for you is a gypsum. Gypsum actually helps flush minerals out of the soil. So that'll help mitigate some of that damage. So I would fertilize them. I would add some gypsum to help flush some of the urine out, and that'll probably, and I water it real good, probably you'll get a great flush of growth, and you'll never know it was damaged. You got to get up to size until the root structure is big enough to support it over the dog's generous urination. So that's a problem. Thanks for coming, y'all. I'll let you clap before you leave, and then appreciate you coming in and supporting us. Tell you what, I'm going to open. Yeah. They sure can. Yeah, they're all made to go right outside. Oh, thank you, Jeremy. Appreciate that.